All right, guys, welcome to the video. Sorry for the delay because I actually did this testing a week ago now, but here's our actual open field testing results. All right, so we have BQ LC versus LC Alex. How did the two do compared to each other? I tried Ragnar Scipio, and I tried flipping Scipio primary and then testing that against Ragnar primary, and I can give you the results for that. Then we have off pairings where if you're going to split BQ up, right, is BQ Ragnar better or BQ Scipio or BQ Philip? Unfortunately, I don't have BQ William Wallace, so I won't be able to present that data, but let's actually get into this. Okay, so before we start, we'll talk about the three legs of commander evaluation from my standpoint. Right, so one, there's field reports, right? So I've presented this in almost every video for the last year now. Right, but the one I like to use the best is actually Cubist Mike's reports manager. So obviously when you go out and fight, you get reports back. This software literally tracks all of the reports and then starts essentially evaluating it so you can actually pull more data from it, right? Like one of the biggest changes he made was super useful was before you can only see the KP ratio, right? And just because something trades better doesn't necessarily mean it's better, right? Because if you're trading 8-to-1, but you're doing 800 sub wounds and you're taking 100 back, I would much rather have something that's trading 2-to-1 and dealing like 4,000 sub wounds and taking 2,000 back on average. All right, so it's not all about trades. That's very important to remember. And once Cubist Mike's added the amount of reports it's calculating off of, you can just divide the sevs and deaths by the number of reports, and you can actually get average sub wounds, which is the number I actually probably value the most. All right. That's subjective, right? It's just numbers are numbers, but there is subjectivity to that. Sometimes when you're fighting, you know that there was like a pocket, maybe like a 30-minute window when you're trying to pop a flag or something, and then you're just diving in over and over. And then for the 30-minute window, the reports are going to be bad, right? And if I'm using one march at that time, and then another march I was using at a time where you were fighting a way where your trades are a lot better, even though one could be a lot worse, it doesn't necessarily mean that commander is worse, right? Or sometimes you're just using it and then you were playing like crap, right? And then, but there was a window where you know you were playing well and you will wipe them, you'll refresh, and then every march is about the same health going back, and you look at the reports, you also get a really good gauge like in that small window of what, like maybe this commander on average does more damage than another commander, but maybe in the overall reports it's harder to show that, right? So I will give some context or the eyeball test to the reports. It just doesn't just show up in the reports manager. And just to be fair, it's kind of like a weird gatekeeping way to say this, but for the eyeball test, only the person that's actually playing, if they're paying attention, actually kind of knows the context of the reports. Third and finally, it's like a mix of objectivity and subjectivity, which is like what the rock nerds like to do, right? Just theory crafting. So for example, Alex, in my opinion, has one of the best expertise in the game, right? It makes 3 targets take 30% more damage for 4 seconds. Really, really hard to measure, right? Like, what is the impact of that on the field? How much do other players benefit from that? How much do your other marches benefit from that, right? Like, you can't really isolate that expertise compared to something else, right? And then show it objectively. Right, so there's some numbers involved where like you could do calculations, but even open fielding is very dynamic. There's all these things going on that when we're theory crafting, right, it's just like I think overall, as far as like contribution to the field, Scipio, because of his health debuff, and also even the small shield he puts up, just does more utility than Ragnar, right? And people will say like, well, Ragnar's drain effect, it'll like slow people down, you know, adds attack, all that stuff. It's, you know, that's just, the theory crafting is actually where a lot of the rock arguments come in, just because it's very hard to prove. All right, so those are the 3 legs of commander evaluation. So I'll kind of also cover that as I'm going over the results. Finally, let's go over the equipment, right? So when I was running LC Alex and when I was running BQLC, I ran both of those on the same set of equipment. And this is an arch formation, right? So the equipment is like above average, more than end game. Usually people's best set is probably a little better than my best set. But then my armaments are very above average, right? It's not elite just because it's missing a special, but it's three specials on one armament. It's getting close to, you know, best of the best, all right? Obviously that's arch, so some people will argue that smite's better, but combo or smite damage benefits from arch, right? So BQ and LC actually benefit from arch. Whereas you can make a case that LC Alex, LC benefits from Arch. Arthur, not so much. His instant proc is a skill damage, right? So it doesn't actually do as much. Once I decided what I was going to do, all the BQ pairings that aren't with LC was actually with the second set, right? So the Ragnar Scipio, the Scipio Ragnar, and then all the other BQ pairings like BQ Ragnar, BQ Scipio, BQ Philip was with the second set. For day one, I ran it with a second Arch set. I had better stats in this one, but I only had 3 inscriptions. So overall, I would say the Arch was actually slightly worse than this one. And then on day 2 and 3, I just decided I'm going to convert the wedge to pincer, and then I made this pincer set. And then finally, I did include my archer set just because I wanted to use the ZL march as kind of like a baseline for you guys to compare. Okay, how much better did Luce Alex do than ZL Herman, right? Because ZL Herman is still considered a legit march, even though it feels like it's been really struggling in this KBK. And then how much better did the BQ Scipio do than ZL Herman, right? Like, you always have to anchor it anchor it somewhere where there's a march that people are familiar with, so then you could actually start kind of comparing, right? Now, I would argue, obviously, my best archer set is better than my second infantry set, right? So if the second infantry set is able to outperform my best archer set, then it's either one, archers are just being heavily targeted right now, or two, some of these commanders are actually able to push the second infantry march above the best archer march, which is a problem for game balance. All right, let's go over day one. So as you guys know, when the zone first opens, it's very hectic, right? A lot of random TPing. You drop a fort, you're trying to go like prevent people from filling the fort, and then you're trying to fill the fort. There's just all this nonsense. So I actually didn't use the first 3 hours of fighting as data, just because I was running BQLC, and I know I couldn't replicate that later on, right? So once the territory more stabilized, I actually fought for 6 more hours using the reports manager. And then here are the results, right? So besides Gaja Cordoba, which was just all T4, all the other marches I ran exactly half T4, half T5. Okay, so they're just comparable in as many ways, like in as many, they're comparable in like, they're as comparable as possible. I'll probably word it that way. All right, and if you guys know, like if you look at the KP ratio versus the average SEVs, right? Because I'm running half T4, half T5, and the Gaja Cordoba is all T4, it can actually trade negative as far as like SEV wounds dealt, and actually still be positive, for example, in KP ratio. That's why like that doesn't match up. Okay, so obviously when you're running Siege, the average SEVs are just higher because it's just on the field a lot longer, far away, right? So you can see the BQLC did trade the best, right? And then LC Alex traded second best. I ran 355 reports for LC Alex, which is more than the BQLC. And just to give you guys a heads up, for about normal fighting, if there's fairly consistent fighting, I average about 80 to 100 reports per hour, right? So that just kind of gives you a gauge, right? So if I'm running LC Alex with 355 reports, that's probably like somewhere like between like 4 and 5 hours of just using him on the field fighting. Okay, now for the average SEVs, even though BQ did better, the average SEVs for LC Alex is actually higher. And just to be frankly honest, while I was using both, there was a point where LC Alex was massively outperforming BQLC. It passed the eyeball test for me. It passed the reports manager test for me. I think towards the end, they started coming online more, and then like we were struggling a little bit. That might be contributed to that, but I'm like fairly confident that Luce Alex is still the best march in the game, which shocked me. That march just won't die. You know, I thought LC Philip was going to be the best march in the game. Didn't happen. I thought BQLC for sure would be the best march in the game, and this was just testing how close LC Alex could get to BQLC. But after using this for that whole day, and then the subsequent days in KBK, at this point, LC Alex, I think is just a GOAT, and I'm medium confident in that. I haven't seen anyone else do this kind of testing with this many reports and the KP ratio, average SEVs, and even talking about their experience using it. Yeah, and because of that, I ended up deciding, okay, well, if I think LC Alex is still the best March in the game, it makes no sense to bench Alex and bring BQ in. Okay, so then it's figuring out, okay, well, is there a BQ pairing without LC that actually works better, right? Before we go on to that, though, let's actually talk about Ragnar Scipio and Scipio Ragnar. Ragnar Scipio is really, really good. It's solid. It's tanky. It's solid. People complain it might be a little slow. I don't really feel that. And out of all the second best marches before, right? So like whatever version you're running for Cavs, right? If you're running Arthur primary, you're running like Hua Joan or something like that. If you're running Hua Arthur, then you're running Nevsky. I don't even know what it is now. Like Nevsky William, Nevsky Belly, something like that. And then for sure the second best Archer March, right, which is a mess right now. Ragnar Scipio is just better than that. Okay, so even though it's only trading 1.01, the opponent was actually fairly strong. Overall, this KVK was like the worst trading KVK I've had in 5 KVKs. And to be honest, probably since like KVK2 for me, right? Like these guys, they just hit really hard. So the overall trade's actually lower. But if you want to look at the ZL Hermit, right? So I showed the equipment and armaments for my primary archers, for my primary archer set. The Ragnar Scipio is not only doing more damage, not only is it doing more damage on average than the ZL Hermit, but it's actually also trading better, right? And it just at this point, it's just one of those where I don't know, archers are struggling right now, right? And which is why I have like high confidence that the next archer commander has to be the best commander in the game. It has to do something very synergistically, probably with poison, to be honest, that kind of brings archers back and makes them at least comparable with the other marches again, right? So just because it's traded 1.01 doesn't mean it's bad. It's a good march. It's just the opponent, right? But I ran that for 120 reports, right? That was when I was obviously running BQLC. When I try flipping it, I try running Scipio primary, Ragnar secondary. One, there's less reports. There's only 53, right? So it's starting to get below the sample size where I'm confident recommending it. But I will say this, with the eyeball test, even though it traded a lot better, that was just a pocket where we were trading massively positive. All my marches were trading positive, including ZL. But when I looked at the reports during that time, it just did less damage than all the other marches, right? Like it's just not good enough, in my opinion. Scipio Ragnar, if you guys thought about using it, or you think it might be better, I think it just doesn't do enough damage, and that's the biggest problem with it. Okay, and I actually tried running it again, like I think like day 3, just mess around, and I'm at this point I'm pretty confident, even though there's not a lot of reports here. If you're trying to decide between Ragnar Scipio, Scipio Ragnar, do Ragnar Scipio. All right. Now let's actually get into the BQ pairings, right? And I have BQ Philip, BQ Scipio, BQ Ragnar. At first, I thought BQ Ragnar would actually be the best, right? And if you look at the reports, not only is the BQ Ragnar doing more damage on average than the BQ Scipio, it's also trading better. But after using it more, I still feel like probably BQ Scipio is slightly ahead of BQ Ragnar, but they're fairly comparable. I don't think if you use one or the other, you're going to notice that much of a difference, right? The BQ Philip, I didn't get to use that much, only 76 reports, just because my Philip has to go with the archers, or else it trades even worse, right? But the little time I did get to use it, for about an hour, right, it was doing way more damage than the Scipio or Ragnar, and it was also trading better. I do actually think, out of all the pairings I have, if I had to make the second best infantry march after LC Alex, it would be BQ Philip. It just, like, personally, with my account, and I think for almost any account running 2 archers, Philip just has to go with archers, right? So then you're picking, for me, I'm picking between Scipio and Ragnar. I don't really have a good feel for how good William Wallace is. You know, at first I thought it would probably be the best one. Then I kind of went back. I'm like, maybe not. Now I'm thinking like it's probably better than BQ Scipio, but probably not as good as BQ Philip. I just don't know though, because I don't have it. I haven't tested it. I haven't seen anyone else show their testing results. So there's a lot that I don't know, right? But let's actually get into the second day and also the third day, right? So you can see all of these. There's a lot more reports now. The Gaja Cordoba even stepped up even more, right? The KP ratio went a lot higher, and it's stealing a lot of average sevs per reports for this, right? Now we're comparing LC Alex versus the two BQ pairings I used on the second day, right? I just permanently decided to use Philip behind ZL and then run my second Archer March, which is Herman YSG. And for whatever reason, Herman YSG has always done way better than theoretically you think it will. It does a massive amount of damage. It actually outtrades ZL Herman for me for whatever reason. And it's like over and over it does it. I can't figure it out, but it just does. But I just didn't put that here just because not a lot of people run that. But you can see here, right, the LC Alex, on the second and third day where we started trading even worse, it's a tough fight. That's the baseline. The Ragnar Scipio and then the BQ Ragnar and then the BQ Scipio started like getting even closer, right? Like if you do BQ Ragnar, maybe because it's slower, it did a little more damage, but it also took more damage. The BQ Scipio traded very slightly better, did slightly less damage, but also took less damage, right? But regardless, both of those still, in my opinion, outperformed the ZL Philip, which is still a solid march. A lot of people use it, but it's just at this point, like if the BQ Scipio or if you split BQ up from LC and then that march could trade better than whatever best archer pairing you can put out there, I think it's worth it to split it up just because here's the way I think about it, right? If you have LC Alex, which is the best march in the game, or at least close enough to BQ LC, which some people are going to say is the best march in the game, then benching Alex to run Ragnar Scipio, in my opinion, versus you run LC Alex, which if I think it's the best march in the game, and I think a BQ say Scipio is a very slight upgrade over Ragnar Scipio, I feel like that's actually the best way to get two marches out there. Now, obviously, there's a consideration of armaments, right? Well, do I keep my wedge? Do I go arch and pincer, right? Like what do I do? So that does matter. The conclusion is I don't think it makes that big a difference. I feel like if you keep BQLC together and then you run Ragnar Scipio, I think it's slightly suboptimal, very slightly, but not that big of a deal. Like it literally would be just about the same like total output. If you do LC Alex, then you run BQ Scipio or BQ Ragnar. I feel like overall that might be slightly better. And then that BQ Scipio or BQ Ragnar pair probably is going to be like better than the second best Cav March or the second best Archer March. Like you could get away with that too. High confidence though, I think LC is by far the best commander in the game. Anything you pair him with, if you look at the reports, it just gaps all the other field marches. It just gaps them. Like there's not another field march that is like within like a standard deviation, of being nerdy, of what LC. Actually, that's not true, okay, because standard deviation is a little higher. But there is not another field march that doesn't involve LC that comes close to LC in the game. And if LC is doing so well with so many different commanders, he's clearly the best commander in the game. I think infantry is clearly the best troop type in the game. If I wanted to go 3 deep, I think my third infantry march will be better than the second best march of the other troop type, right? If I want to run 3 infantry, it's pretty clear. You do LC Alex, you do BQ Scipio or BQ Ragnar. If you're saving your Philip, wait, let me think about it. You do BQ Philip, and then you do Ragnar Scipio, right? And that Ragnar Scipio, quote unquote, the third best infantry march is, I think, better than the second best archer and cap march. Very confident in that, and the high confidence. Medium confidence, I know some people will fight me on this. I think LC Alex is still the GOAT. At this point, if I was coaching people, I would just recommend they invest in Alex. Infantry just came out. You're going to have that LC Alex pairing for at least another 8 months. And what's probably going to happen is you're going to get another Smite Commander, and it'll probably make sense to do BQ and the new Smite Commander and just keep LC Alex together. So you'll probably actually have them for like a year and a half at least, right? And you know, who knows what's happening with this game then, right? So crazy LC Alex just can't be replaced. It's still the best in my opinion. And then if I was gonna guess the best BQ pairing, if you're gonna split up BQ from LC, I think it's probably gonna be BQ Philip or BQ William Wallace, even though I'm not personally running it because I want my marches to be a little bit more balanced. BQ William Wallace, because I haven't tested it, I don't know. Theory crafting, it should be good. BQ Philip, I think it is better. I just can't run it that way and then not let my archers completely go to shit. All right. If you watch all the way to the end yet, you haven't, please like and subscribe to the video. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.